Hello and welcome to Alumni Voices, the official podcast for the English School Nicosia's alumni community. Today's episode is a recording of a conversation with the delightful Helen Leonidou. Helen attended the school, graduating in 1967. She became personal assistant to the headmaster Anthony Eccleston and David Humphreys and has worked in various roles within the school, retiring very recently from 30 plus years as a board secretary. Her daughter Natasha is a long-time staff member of the school who is currently guiding our future graduates along their career paths, with both of Helen's grandchildren graduating from the school too. Helen was single-handedly responsible for preserving the school artefacts and photos, creating an archive and documentation which is being built upon to this day. She's a mine of information, both factual and social, and incredibly loyal. This conversation was recorded in a coffee shop with Helen's full consent the first time that we met. There were so many authentic memories. I wanted to capture them in the moment. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
63 I went as a student. 67 I finished year 7 and did my A-levels, and I also did shorthand and typing at the same time, because to be quite honest, the Cyprus of 63, there wasn't much for young people to do. It was a far cry from what it is now, you know. And also there was the moral thing. Boys and girls really weren't allowed to communicate or go out alone, so there was all that. It was that much different.
So not a lot of work for girls or for women, or there was an expectation you went the traditional route, housemaker and homemaker?
Yes, that was sort of the norm. A lot of girls went to work, very poorly paid for long hours. I mean, a friend of mine was a secretary, all full day, you know, morning till afternoon, and she was paid £11 a month. And I mean, this is going back many years. However, when I first started at the school doing mornings, because we were shut in the afternoon, I got £32 a month. So, you know, the school was a good provider, a good place to be working. Anyway, to come back to what we were saying, when I sort of was working at the board, I used to sort of come across things in various either old papers, or I'd hear from someone who was at the school years and years before me. So I thought, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to just jot things down with the dates. And I started right at the beginning, 1900. I think I went up to 1960 something. There were a lot of interesting things about the school that we didn't know. I mean, the first person in Cyprus to have an appendix out sort of in sanitary conditions was a teacher at the English school. Canon Newham brought football to Cyprus. No, you know, nobody knew that. A lot of other things at the school, odd little things that the school was first in Cyprus. So I've got it all in that. And you know, some of the things are quite funny, but that'll be a very interesting document.
Well, last week, about 2 weeks ago, maybe more, a lady contacted us who was also a graduate, and her dad was turning 100.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, when she contacted me, I was trying to find his records, so I went with Karen and Karen went through a whole bunch of records and stuff, and he graduated in 43. But it was fascinating because he was also the cohort that went to the Dome Hotel and the Cassilius.
During the war.
So I did all this research during the war about what happened.
Well, I've got the dates when all that happened.
Right, so I have the book as well, so I've been reading through the book. Anyway, so
you
now
just sort of go down the dates and see when it shows when they went to Kyrenia, when the school went to Kyrenia and all
it's
that.
It's fascinating, so now I'm getting more and more involved
in it. It is, yes. Where did you get the information from? Was it from, we've got these big book mark sheets. Was it from that? Okay. So a lot of things got lost. Like I gave that example with that tin chest. I mean, that looked like nothing. But I mean, nobody even bothered to take off the lid and see what was inside.
It's terrible, though.
I know there was a lot of stuff in the headmaster's office, because I started off as headmaster's secretary, then the board took me on, and the headmaster got his own secretary.
Right.
And after the sort of, I think after David left, David Humphreys, 88, after that there were so many headmasters and so many secretaries that things just this. I mean, we had one board member, he was a lovely man, Armenian, Mr. Makdessian. He was on the board for 25 years. And there were others who were on the board for a year. We'd have games once a year between us, the American Academy in Larnaca, and the Melkonian Institute, which doesn't exist anymore. It was the Armenian equivalent to the English school. And we'd always look forward to it. We'd have a whale of a time on that day. You know, we'd be there at the crack of dawn, and there'd be games, football, basketball, volleyball, and sandwiches and cokes. It was wonderful. And that's gone. In the library, Eleanor's got, I managed to collect, I think I collected all the magazines. I even gave her the first magazine.
Oh, she showed me in the hardcovers.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
that David Humphreys had, and when he left the school, he died shortly afterwards. Before he died, he gave it to me as a present.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have a David Humphreys prize every year, and his wife said that he always wants me to give the prize. This year I couldn't do it because I wasn't well, so I don't know if I'll be invited back again. I mean, nobody knows me at the school anyway.
Right.
So it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But he said, I want you to have this. It's a first. He said, don't lose it. I said, no, but I get
So it's the David Humphreys magazine.
It's a David Humphreys Memorial Prize.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's offered, I think, to sort of an all-round student, not just academically doing well.
Right.
We've had quite a few headmasters over the last few years. We had one for 20 years, David Humphreys.
Yes.
And then we sort of chopped and changed quite a bit. But I suggested that in the prospectus, and I don't know if they do that now, they should put that document, because very, very few people, and why should they be, are aware of the history of the school and what they're belonging to. But now I hardly know anybody at school, just the very old teachers who are still there, which are very few and far between. The admin staff I know because I got on very well with the admin girls. You know, I was sort of like their mother.
Yeah.
You know?
So you're class of 67, is that right?
I finished in 67, yes, from year 7.
Right.
And then as soon as I left school, I was going to go to England to university. And the headmaster, Mr. Eggleston, he offered me a job there. And because I knew English, I knew Greek, I could type in Greek and English, I knew shorthand, and he offered me a job as his secretary.
Right.
So I sort of talked it over with my parents, and you know, in those days you didn't leave home to go that far away easily, like they do now. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And as I said, my friend next door was earning £11 a month for a full day's work. I was going to be earning £32 first salary for half a day in an environment that I knew and loved.
Yeah.
So I think it was a mistake. I think I should have gone
That was
on.
going to be my next question.
Yes,
Did you regret it?
Not straight away, not for a few years, but many years later I did.
Right.
Because I was happy in my job. And then when I saw other people who had degrees and the quality of their application forms and the quality of their English, I thought, you know, how can you be sort of, you know, on a different level from me when I could easily have gone to university. But never mind, you know, I don't like to judge, but it's what I felt about my choice. I felt much later that, yes, I had made a mistake.
Yeah, we all did already.
Yes, thank you. So I felt that I should have gone to university. But there again, we're talking about Cyprus of the very... I mean, it had only been a republic for 3 years.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was sort of still feeling its way around, and things were very, very unstable. So in the beginning, I really, really enjoyed it. And I have enjoyed working at the school. And I feel very close to the school. I know the school from when it was a beautiful place. I mean, it was the envy. I mean, it's the only place in Nicosia with all that sort of park area in the middle of Nicosia, and beautiful buildings. And the staff were very proud of what where they were working, and they were always supportive to each other. Do feel that the English school has changed, maybe for the better. You know, you can't look back and say, oh, those were the days, even if you did think those were the days.
Exactly.
But there was much more collegiality, because as I said, there wasn't very, very much to do in Cyprus in those days, and so our school was also our social. Yes, it was, and it was nice. You know, and the teachers would come in the afternoons and for games and for this and that, and not expect to be paid.
Yeah, right.
You know, they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
The actual boardroom building, the board building, used to be the headmaster's house. Anyway, when they knocked down the block where my office was housed, I was sort of in temporary accommodation here and there. And then eventually we said, well, why don't I put it wasn't being used. The headmaster wasn't living in it, because one of the headmaster's wives didn't like it, but I'll tell you, it's a beautiful building. Traditionally, it's always been the headmaster's house.
I was so happy.
I nearly cried when they said when the headmaster asked if he could live somewhere else, and the board agreed. I kept saying, no, don't. It's been like this for years. And, you know, it's different when it's empty, but once you get your furniture in and your light fittings and your big wooden, you know, the open fires, it was gorgeous. Because we always used to have the headmaster's cocktail party in September in his house. And and then he'd have another party at Christmas inside with it. It was beautiful. And anyway, now it's the headmaster, it's the boards building, still not being made proper use of. I mean, I just feel sad. I think that's why I didn't go there. But anyway, at one point, this other headmaster decided to renovate his office. And this was years ago. And he was sort of moving things out. His secretary was moving in. I found on the landing a big tin box. And it said on the outside in very sort of faded lettering, Newham. So I thought, this has got to be. It was a big tin chest.
Canon stuff.
I said, all that stuff on the landing was ready to be thrown out. So and I just happened to be going past to go downstairs to go to somebody's office. And on the way back up, I had another look at it. And I opened it, and it was full of old photographs. Anyway, I went, stop, put it down. Don't you dare take it away. Anyway, I took it up to my office where I was temporarily, and then when we went to the boardroom, I didn't do anything to it. I just kept it as it was, with the photos in the box.
Wow.
Anyway, it's still there now, and it turned out that it is Canon Newham's
like his trunk,
yes,
it's not
it's not a wooden trunk. It's a tin one. Yes, but it's got his name on it, and I think on the other side it's got Larnaca, so it's probably where he arrived.
Yeah, wow.
And anyway, we've got that, so I was very proud when I found that, and loads of photos, which, in my amateur way, I tried to sort of pick out ones which I had photographed and framed.
Yeah, I've seen that. Well, that was you, was it?
Yes, that was me.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I found pictures of all the chairmen of the board.
Yeah, right.
And I said to the secretary, do the same with the headmaster. I don't think she has, though. And I tried to sort of instill some kind of history into the building, the environment where I'm working. And sometimes I used to bring kids over. If they had a free period, I'd say to the teacher, if you've got a lesson free, bring them over to the boardroom. And they were all fascinated. So I think they don't value and are not loyal to the school in the way they should be, because they don't know where they are. They don't know who's come before them and the history of the school. So I think it's very important for the timetable somehow to squeeze in a little bit about what the school is all about. It's not just it's not a private school, it's not a state school. It's got its own special status.
Okay, so let's get back to your story. So then you took the job as a secretary at the school.
Yes.
And then
I took the job. I took the job as secretary with the headmaster, who was my headmaster as a student, with John Eggle.
You said Eggleston.
Tony Eggleston.
Right.
A year later, in '68, he left with his wife Penny to go to England. He'd been offered headship of a school in Dunmow, Essex. I think it's a boarding school, actually. Anyway, he left. He was a very, very old school headmaster. An enormous man, very tall, and he used to wear his cape and, the mortarboards.
Really?
Yes, he did.
During the day?
There'd be canings. Yeah. I mean, we're going that far back.
Wow.
A year after I was secretary, he left to go to England. We were all very sad, actually. We really cried when he left.
Oh.
And then Mr. Humphreys came along, who is one of the most famous head teachers
Yeah,
of the
the
school.
dog. I saw pictures of the dog as well, right?
Yes. He had his daughter is an MP now, actually. Harriet, her name is. It's not Harmon. It's something else. But anyway, he had 3 children, and they lived in the headmaster's house, and he was headmaster for about 20 years.
Wow.
He would wear his cape at assemblies and things like that. He was very strict, but in such a way that the kids admired him, and the staff admired him and wanted to work with him. Now, after he arrived, 3 or 4 years later, I got married and I left. We went to Greece and England. So I've got a little bit of a gap for a few years. I came back, it was still Mr. Humphreys, but a year later he retired. And then other headmasters came along. So from 67, when I first arrived, I've worked with all the headmasters that have ever been at the school. And I've got a little list, Karen has it, of all the headmasters.
Yeah.
So,
Goodness me.
Yes, I've worked with each and every one. I think people don't believe me. They're just making it up, She's just showing off because nobody else is around today.
To challenge it.
To say, that's not true.
Goodness me.
So, and lots of different boards. The boards in say 2000, they're all selected and appointed by the Council of Ministers.
So I hear, yeah.
Because there's a law, an English school law, and you have to go. But that's why I'm saying the school isn't private and it isn't really state school either. It's got a very funny status that's in between both. The Council of Ministers appoints 11 people, one of who is always the British Council director.
Right.
And they run the school, so to speak. They don't actually make policies, they approve policies put to them by the headmaster. And it was always a very good selection. We had sort of people from the Ministry of Education, we had the head of the Higher Technical Institute, we had ladies who were doing sort of social work. It was a very good selection. The school hasn't declined.
No.
And I think that's due to the students. I think it's because they do work hard, they do have goals, and they start off obviously with the entrance exam, so you are filtering out the best, which is an advantage. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the top in the entrance exam is going to be top throughout.
I wonder if a lot of that is also because I'm also be interested to see how many of the kids are kids of past graduates.
Alumni.
Yeah, alumni. Kids of alumni.
It doesn't make any difference in the entrance exam.
No, I know, but I'm just wondering
but
if that instilled in I went there, like the Eton concept and all that. I went there, so you go there.
A lot of them do.
So that sort of work ethic
is already there.
It's the pride in the school that the parents had, and they have happy memories. I want my child to go there. Yes, there's a lot of that, and it's very unfortunate sometimes, because sometimes it can backfire. You get one child taking the exam and passing of an alumni, then the second child comes along and doesn't pass. That's
right,
all. We had twins. We had twins that took the exam. One passed and the other one failed dismally. You couldn't even maneuver to allow the two kids to go. You couldn't even do. He failed dismally. And then they had a policy about twins that they should allow this, unless it was a dismal fail, to allow the twin in. I think after that they changed it again, and they said no, on their own merit. But you can see that a parent who's an alumni wants their child to go to the school. One gets in, the other doesn't. It must, hours of tears at home.
Can you imagine?
But the pride in joining the school and wanting to keep up the tradition, or my grandfather went there, I went there, my father, now my son, that goes on a lot. But I just think the kids aren't that proud anymore. I mean, we used to have a lot of sports. Sports was a massive thing, because as I said, it was part of our social life.
What kid doesn't love sport, right?
Well,
they need to blow the steam off.
They don't seem to do so much in our school.
No.
There are those who are talented and shine and do PE because they enjoy it. But I mean, I was terrible at PE, but I had to do it, I always came in last in whatever I did, but I had to do it because it was games. But the English school always had a good reputation. It still does. I feel sorry that things have changed. But as I said before, that was our social life as well. Kids have got more interesting things to do now. So that if they'd rather do something else, say, than spend all Saturday play
school event or whatever.
I can understand that.
I must admit,
they do a lot though. One day, when we had a fire somewhere again, a smallish fire, and they had to do they had to rebuild the toilets. No, it was the staff room when we had the big fire. Anyway, they got it all done and fixed, and we were going to move back in. And I went up to go to the staff room to get something. I used to make my own coffee anyway, but I went up to get something from the staff room anyway. And it said, teaching staff. I went bananas. Because, I'd been there since 1967, and we're talking about 1992. I went in there, I think my face must have been either bright red or white. And I can't remember who I found there, and I said, am I not allowed in here? And they all went, oh, because they all seemed to feel, I don't know why, that I was sort of a conduit to the board, or I wasn't. If something was fair, I'd help them present it in a way that should be presented, and briefly, because they used to write sometimes reams and reams of complaints. And I said, look, they're not going to read all this. Put down what the problem is, and a recommendation of how you feel it should be rectified, and I'll put it to the board. Anyway, people were always in my office. Anyway, I went in and I said, am I not welcome here? And they said, no, why, of course you're welcome. I said, but I'm not teaching staff. They said, oh, that doesn't matter. I said, well, what's that on the door then? I said, teaching staff, how dare you, I said. What would you all do without the non-teaching staff? What are they? Chopped liver? So they took it down the same day.
Oh, did they?
Yes, I made them.
Good.
I've called, it wasn't George then, it was a ES Nikos. I called him up, I said, take that down now.
Well, thank you for listening to this conversation with myself and Helen. I hope you enjoyed the accompanying images. And if you haven't already signed up to the alumni platform, please do so at alumni.englishschool.ac.cy for graduates of the English School. Thanks, and tune in soon for the next episode.